There are easy ways to avoid all that grease. Steer clear of fried snacks such as potato chips and French fries. Top salads with fat-free dressings, lemon juice, or balsamic vinegar. Use non-stick pans. Steam fry onions, garlic, or vegetables in water or another cooking liquid instead of sautéing the traditional way. See the menus and recipes section. Steam vegetables. Consider using cooking spray to dispense small traces of oil in place of poured oils. Use fat-free, non-dairy coffee creamer. Read package labels. Look for products with no more than 2 to 3 grams of fat per serving or with a percentage of calories from fat of below 10%. When it comes to avoiding greasy foods, some people are eager to make an exception for olive oil. It seems natural and even chic. But think for a second about how factories manage to fill a bottle with oil. They take an enormous number of olives, discard their fiber and pulp, and leave you with pure fat. Gram for gram, olive oil has the same number of calories as beef fat, chicken fat, and other fats and oils. That is, 9 calories per gram. No other food is more calorie-dense. While olive oil contains a great deal of monounsaturated fat, which has little or no effect on cholesterol, it also contains saturated fat, about 13%, the kind that increases cholesterol and worsens insulin resistance. It does not matter how expensive the oil is or how extra virgin it may be, it still has more calories and saturated fat than your body is designed to process to maintain optimal health. There are, of course, traces of natural vegetable oils in vegetables, fruits, beans, and grains. But you need not worry about them. Your body does need a tiny amount of fat, and plants provide it naturally. We run into problems when oils are concentrated, as they are in fried foods, oily sauces, and recipes with added oils. A few plant foods, such as nuts, seeds, olives, avocados, and some soy products, are naturally high in oil. You will want to keep them to a minimum. What about good fats? There are 2 types of fat your body actually needs. Their technical names are alpha-linolenic acid and linoleic acid. These terms are not important. You will never see them on an ingredients list. What is important to know is that you only need a tiny amount of them. The body's need for these essential fats is no more than 2 to 3% of your daily calorie intake. Where do you find them? Beans, vegetables, and fruits are very low in fat overall, but the traces they do contain are relatively rich in good fat, that is, alpha-linolenic acid. This is the basic omega-3 fat that your body uses to produce other good fats. Nuts, seeds, and soy products contain larger amounts. Linoleic acid is found in many plant foods too. Some people boost the omega-3 fats in their diets to treat arthritis, for example. If you are doing this, be careful. All fats, good and bad, are equally fattening, and many contain things your body does not need. Fish oil, for example, contains plenty of saturated fat along with its omega-3s. At the end of this chapter, I will describe more healthful omega-3 sources. The best way to get the right kind and amount of fat in your diet is to skip animal products, fried foods, and oily food products and get your nutrition from vegetables, fruits, beans, and whole grains. Does it really matter whether or not we avoid animal products and added oils? Absolutely. A typical North American or European diet might provide 80 to 100 grams of fat per day, or even more. Switching from beef to chicken and fish, keeping portions modest, and limiting added oils will trim this to about 60 grams. But setting animal products aside and avoiding added oils can drop this number to close to 20 grams. In the process, your cholesterol intake, which would be well over 200 milligrams per day on an unmodified diet, will drop to zero. Zero. Every cell in your body will thank you. 3. Favor foods with a low glycemic index. You will find this third guideline very useful. The glycemic index, GI, is a handy tool that was invented by David Jenkins, MD, PhD, DSc, a physician and researcher at the University of Toronto. It is simply a number that indicates how rapidly any given food releases sugar into the bloodstream. A food with a high GI releases sugar into the blood quickly. The glycemic index of a food is determined by feeding a portion containing 50 grams of carbohydrate to 10 healthy people after an overnight fast. Blood glucose is tested at 15 to 30-minute intervals over the next 2 hours, and the result is compared to that of feeding the same amount of glucose, or in some cases white bread. A GI below 100 means the test food has less effect on blood sugar than glucose. A higher number means the food has a greater effect. One example is white bread. If the molecules of carbohydrate in bread were greatly magnified, they would look like strings of beads. Each bead is a molecule of sugar, glucose. In your digestive tract, these beads separate and pass into your bloodstream. With white bread, this process is quick. The string of beads rapidly disintegrates and the individual glucose molecules race into your bloodstream. If you were to check your blood sugar after eating the bread, you would see the result. White bread has a high GI, meaning it has a pronounced effect on your blood glucose. In contrast, pumpernickel bread has a low GI. Its string of beads comes apart more slowly, passing into the bloodstream bit by bit. It has much less effect on your blood sugar. In a nutshell, high GI foods tend to have a greater effect on your blood sugar, and low GI foods have less effect. I should mention that when researchers measure the GI of individual foods, they test volunteers who do not have diabetes. So, a food that does not raise their blood sugar very much could raise yours somewhat more. However, the point of the glycemic index is to allow us to rate foods, to compare one against another, so we can choose the best ones. Before I give you a list of the GI values of many common foods, let me first summarize a few things to look for so you can size up most foods without consulting a table. Glycemic index at a glance. Beans and their relatives, lentils, peas, are always low GI. Green leafy vegetables can also be considered low GI, although they have so little starch that their GIs typically have not been calculated. Nearly all fruits have a low GI. Yes, they are sweet, but most will not raise your blood sugar terribly quickly. Two exceptions, watermelon and pineapple, have a higher GI than other fruits. Pasta is a low GI food, surprising but true. Barley, bulgur, and parboiled converted rice all have a low GI value. Pumpernickel and rye breads have a lower GI value, while wheat varieties such as bagels, white bread, and even whole wheat bread have a higher GI. Yams and sweet potatoes are low GI foods in contrast to baking potatoes, which have a high GI. Among breakfast cereals, oatmeal and bran cereals have a lower GI, while most cold cereals tend to have a high GI. Now, if you have type 2 diabetes, any food with carbohydrate in it will push your blood sugar up to a degree. In fact, a rise in blood glucose after a meal is normal, and if your cells are insulin resistant, it takes a bit more time for glucose in your bloodstream to pass into your cells. This does not mean, however, that you should avoid foods that contain carbohydrate. What it means is that you will want to take steps to reduce your insulin resistance, as outlined in this chapter. Among carbohydrates, the best are those with a low GI. The reason I mention this is that sometimes people with type 2 diabetes shun carbohydrates. They avoid rice, beans, pasta, and all the rest, and load up on chicken, fish, and eggs because these foods have no carbohydrate. But over the long run, they find their blood sugar does not improve. Their level gets worse, so they need more and more medicine. It makes sense when you think about the accumulation of fat in cells, more gum in the locks, so to speak. Greasy meals today mean insulin resistance tomorrow. It may surprise you to learn that pasta has a low GI. It does, particularly if it is served al dente, that is, not overcooked. Of course, pasta is made from wheat flour, so you may think it would spike your blood sugar in the same way as wheat bread, but that is not the case. Pasta actually gives us a little lesson in why some foods have a high GI while the GI of others is low. Let's say we are making bread dough. We add a bit of yeast to the flour to make the bread rise. The yeast causes many tiny air pockets to form, which is what makes bread different from, say, a shingle. Now, as you eat the baked bread, your stomach acid and digestive enzymes enter those air pockets and rapidly break the molecules of flour into individual sugar molecules that then pass from your digestive tract into your bloodstream. Even whole wheat bread, with shreds of fiber remaining, is easy pickings for digestive enzymes. They have no difficulty entering the air pockets and digesting the starch in the bread. Pasta is different. It is not made with yeast, so it has no air pockets. If bread is like a pile of tiny twigs, ready to ignite with a single spark, pasta is like a cord of logs. It is much more compacted and catches fire more slowly. Even if you chew pasta thoroughly, there is no way it can digest as rapidly as bread, and that's why it has a lower GI. The take-home lesson is that processing foods, pulverizing grains into flour or using yeast to make dough rise, for example, starts the digestive process before you even put the food on your plate. An intact grain is slow to come apart and release glucose into your bloodstream, while a heavily processed grain disintegrates quickly. Thus, old-fashioned oatmeal, which consists of whole oats, has a low GI. But quick cooking oatmeal is made by slicing the oat grains into fragments. That allows it to cook faster and to digest faster, which means a higher GI. If you would like to look up the GI of individual foods, you can take a look at a website established at the University of Sydney in Australia, www.glycemicindex.com. Just type in the name of the food, and all the testing results will appear. Here is a list of common foods and their typical approximate glycemic index as they are rated at www.glycemicindex.com. The glycemic index of common foods. Grains and grain products. All bran cereal, 38. Barley, pearled, 25. Bread, pumpernickel, 55. Bread rye, 63. Bread white, 70. Bread whole wheat, 70. Corn, 60. Oatmeal instant, 65. Oatmeal old-fashioned, 62. Quinoa, 53, rice brown, 50, rice parboiled, 48, rice white, 72, spaghetti, 48. Legumes. Beans black, 30, beans kidney, 29, beans navy, 39, beans pinto, 39, chickpeas, 36, lentils red, 31, peas, 22. Fruit. Apple, 44. Apricot, 57. Banana, 51. Cantaloupe, 65. Grapes, 43. Orange, 48. Peach, 28. Pear, 33. Pineapple, 66. Raisins, 64. Strawberries, 40. Watermelon, 72. And vegetables. Carrot, 41. Potato new, 70. Potato russet, baked, 94. Sweet potato, 48. Yam, 51. Values of 55 or below are considered low. 56 to 69 are medium, and 70 and above are high. GI values are calculated only for foods containing sugar or starch.
This is the end of disc number 2. Please continue listening on disc number 3.